Hi everyone, this video is going to be about Super Famicom and SNES controllers. There's actually going to be some interesting information I'm going to share with you here. That's a very interesting fact. So first of all, when I got my Super Famicom controllers, I expected nightmares. Because I'm used to, well, standard modern controllers, which are not like that. But it actually surprised me for the better. It actually was bigger than I thought it would be. Well, as you can see, we don't have thumbsticks here. We actually control the movement using the D-pad. Now, this controller is often cited by gamers and designers as the most influential gamepad in history. It was released in Japan in 1990, and it didn't just improve on the NES, it established the DNA that almost every modern controller actually uses. Now, before this controller, your index fingers did nothing but grip the controller. Now, Nintendo added the left and right buttons on the top edge, effectively increasing the number of active inputs without cluttering the face of the pad. And this allows, of course, for banking in racers like F-Zero or switching weapons in Super Metroid without pausing. Now, the Super Famicom introduced the 4-button diamond arrangement for the A, B, X, and Y buttons. Now, this layout is now the industry standard because it allows the thumb to pivot naturally from the central point to reach the 4 different actions easily. Now, while the original NES controller was a literal brick with sharp edges that cause hand cramps, the Super Famicom introduced rounded, contoured shape. It was designed to fit the natural curve of the palms, allowing for much longer play session without fatigue. Now, aside from that, in Japan and Europe, the 4 face buttons were vibrant colors: green, blue, yellow, and red. And this wasn't just for looks, it allowed developers to give an on-screen prompt that were instantly recognizable, like press the red button to jump, for example. Now, just so you know that the North American SNES version changed these 2 shades of purple with different textures, like concave and convex. We're going to talk about that in a moment, to help players feel which button they were actually pressing without looking. Now, Nintendo patented this cross-shaped D-pad invented by Gunpei Yokoi for the 1982 Donkey Kong Game & Watch. I was playing that back in the days. It featured a central pivot that prevented you, called the fulcrum, that prevented you from accidentally pressing up and down at the same time, providing the precision needed for the complex quarter circle input required by, for example, like games like Street Fighter 2. Now, even the original Sony PlayStation controller was heavily inspired by this Super Famicom's controller layout. So when Sony designed their first gamepad, they adopted the Nintendo's diamond button pattern and shoulder button concept. They even evolved it by adding grips for better handling and a second set of shoulder buttons, the L2 and R2, and this shows again how much the industry respected the Super Famicom's design as the correct way to play games. Now, to be honest with you, I have 2 original controllers and I was quite surprised seeing them in such a good shape. The definitely look used, of course. There was quite heavily colorization issues, for example, in the connective parts of the plastics. And considering again that the console was discontinued in North America in 1999, Nintendo of Japan continued to produce the Super Famicom for 13 years due to its massive popularity and the continued demand for the hardware. But the last date that the original Super Famicom hardware and controller were manufactured was September 25, 2003. Now, in order to see the date, you need to open the controllers. I haven't done that. I mean, I searched for the outer part, the plastic at the back, but there wasn't any date or anything. But these are old. Even if you get a relatively new one, they're still ancient. I mean, compared to modern controllers where they just break after like a few months, sometimes a year, or maybe sometimes 2, these controllers are beasts. I mean, longevity-wise. Still, after some time, of course, the D-pad will become more mushy and stuff, and people want to replace them. And of course, there are other more modern replacements for that available. Lots of them, lots of options. Now, I want to talk about the button. This actually is very interesting information. So basically, when it comes to the shape of the buttons, we have the convex and the concave. So with my Super Famicom, the original controllers, you can see here all of the buttons are basically concave. Right? You can see like a back of a spoon, rounded. Also, you can see this is a very low kind of profile view, low angle. So you can see that for all of them, it's like that. Both the red, blue, yellow, and green. Now, if you look at the North American one, you can see the X and Y are concave, which means they curved inwards like a cave. So it's lower at the bottom and higher at the edges, the outer edges. Where the A and B button, the one with in purple, they're actually convex, like the original Super Famicom one, where all of the buttons are convex. You're going to be, people will find the concave to be more comfortable because it's kind of, it has a little dip in the middle, so your fingers can rest inside them comfortably. Some people said that even it allows them to aim better compared to the convex ones. But I asked myself, well, why is that? So from what I've read, in 1991, Lance Barr noted that many players found it difficult to tell the four-face buttons apart without looking down at their hands. Now, since the Super Famicom and PAL controllers use identical shapes for all four buttons, players had to rely entirely on muscle memory or color. So the solution for that was making X and Y buttons concave and keeping A and B convex rounded. So basically Barr gave players a physical landmark. And this way you can instantly tell which row your thumb was on simply by just feeling it, if the button was a ball or a dome. Even Shigeru Miyamoto later praised this as an outstanding piece of American industrial design. Now you ask myself, what with the colors? Well, they tried to avoid the toy aesthetic. In the early 90s, the video game market in North America was shifting. So while Japan embraced the bright red, yellow, green and blue buttons of the Super Famicom, Nintendo of America designer Lance Barr felt that those colors looked like a preschool toy. So to appeal to the older American kids and teens, Nintendo of America wanted the console to look like a serious piece of electronics, similar to a VCR or stereo. So they settled on shades of purple because it was considered cool and sophisticated at the time, helping the system feel like a high-end tech product rather than a child's plaything. Now of course, by using the same purple of the power and reset switches on the console and the buttons on the controller, Nintendo created a unified look. This made a North American SNES instantly recognizable compared to its colorful international counterparts. Now probably you ask yourself, well, what we are actually using now? Well, if you look for example the Xbox controller, we can see that this is convex, right? All of the four ones are convex for the X, Y, B and A buttons. The Nintendo Switch Pro controller, it's a bit flatter, but you can see it's still convex. Same goes to the DualSense controller, the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller, it's also convex, kind of rounded. Now each of them have their own pros and cons. For example, the concave, the indented, have very good grip, so fingers can stay put when you're actually using those buttons. But for some it was less comfortable and you have slower transition, especially again kind of traps the thumb, where the convex, for example, you can do faster combos because the thumb kind of glides, and it also kind of has greater comfort because it felt smooth. But it was also at the same time prone to slip and also felt less tactile. So eventually, for example, with the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller, they went with convex, and the reason for that, from what I've read, is they prioritize sliding ergonomics because modern games like, for example, God of War, Spider-Man and others require you to quickly roll your thumb between four buttons to chain combos. Now, the rounded convex shape is of course the best for that. It prevents your thumb from actually getting stuck in a dip. They also felt more premium and smooth, matching the sleek futuristic aesthetic of the console. Now with the Xbox wireless controller, the Xbox buttons are noticeably taller and more bubbled, highly convex, and this is again for speed and accessibility. And also the high dome means that you don't have to press your thumb down very far to actuate the button. This also makes the buttons easier to find by feel, and it's just easier of course to find them in general because they just poke out more than others. So you don't even have to look at the controller, just hold it and you know exactly where they are located. And kind of similar reason to the Nintendo Switch Pro controller for durability, comfort. As I mentioned, they are flatter but rounded convex shape, but it spread the pressure across more of your thumb, which reduces gaming fatigue. Compared to something that is more, pointy. And there are many games where you actually need to hold the button, for example, for longer duration, where if it's kind of the round is kind of more pointy, it might kind of lead to certain fatigue and discomfort compared to something that is slightly flatter. And I actually like that the colors on the Super Famicom controllers are like that because they're more childish. It kind of connects me better to my childhood. I didn't have this particular console, but because of that, it feels more like a toy, better connection, childish connection to it. I mean, the North American version looks more mature, but I'm pretty sure many people will find it a bit even boring or even too sterile. On the other hand, the Super Famicom controller just felt really fun and inviting. Aside from that, I find to be very comfortable to play 2D games even for long durations, something that I didn't expect to experience. The shorter cable, of course, might be an issue for some, but there are some extenders, and also there are modern options if you decide to not go with the original ones. Like that, for example, of 8-bit do, option for wireless, and also some more conventional looking controllers. There are many other modern options available today. I'm personally really fine with what I have right now, no issues. I actually really enjoy it, and also I really enjoy just it's just a better connection to the original experience. After that, I maybe buy some other controllers just to check it out for the experience. You never know. You need to test it out for yourself to be sure if you prefer something else or not. Thanks for watching.